another episode of VanLife Unfiltered. I am so excited to be back and to be with a very special guest today. And here at VanLife Unfiltered, our point really is to be able to provide resources for people who are looking to get into van life and have some questions and want to get solid, real, good quality information from professionals. So that is why we are here today with Steven Stolp from Sandy Vans. And I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Howdy, folks. Stolp here from Sandy Vans. I am the lead builder here, aka the Chief Build Officer. A little bit about Sandy Vans. We are a van company located in San Diego, California. We build about 3 to 4 sprinters every month. I got my start in van building about 8 years ago after I got out of the military of 6 years. I just started building furniture, and then some guy with a school bus was like, hey, you'd be good at building vans. And I saw vans at the skate park where I ride BMX, and I was just like, man, maybe I should start building one or two of these things. And then when that happened, YouTube video later, I had a bunch of people ask me to build their vans instead of people hitting me up from my resumes. So that's when Stolp Solutions started. And then just about 3 years ago, I partnered with a very intelligent group of guys, and that is what we know as Sandy Vans.
Awesome. And how did you learn how to build vans? Like, how did you get the professional knowledge that you have today, you use every single day building vans at Sandy Vans? Where did you learn from?
So you're going to hate that answer. A lot of it was just doing it. I'll be a little more elaborate with that. It was a lot of trial and error. But luckily my background, I grew up in Illinois, didn't have a very privileged upbringing, if you will. So when things broke around the house, like I was fixing things. When I was in grade, I made like a remote control car. I was always following my dad around. He was working on cars. And then I started working construction when I was 12, which is not legal. But the first time I was on a job site, I was 12 years old. So I did a lot of carpentry, but it was all like rough framing, drywall, like baseboard. It wasn't this like fine craft carpentry that I got into later in life. And that was after my military career. And yeah, so after business school, I was like, all right, I can work on cars. I know a lot about electrical stuff from the military. I was in the advanced electronic computer field, and I work construction. Like, how do I build a career out of this? And I couldn't think of it at all. And then I was building 2 vans in my driveway while I was in college. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And then I was like, maybe I should just keep building vans. So that's how everything kept going.
Yeah, and so I know now you're going to be having a class in San Diego where you're teaching people how to build vans, the progress going through step by step, which is very exciting. I believe it's May 15th, I believe, right?
May 18th. Right? It's a Saturday. It's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. or noon. And yeah, you're going to come to Sandy Vans, our shop here in Miramar, San Diego, and I'm going to just kind of help answer questions, kind of do a little bit of what we're doing right now, like introducing myself, explaining why I am a credible source when it comes to this, and, you know, just pretty much community outreach. I want people to feel comfortable asking professionals rather than finding stuff on the internet, which we all know isn't always a great source.
Yeah, I would love if we could right now kind of go over some of the beginning things we'll be talking about in that course to kind of give a little bit of a recap and go through. I know you have like a syllabus you'll be going through. Just starting out, what would you tell someone who is looking to start a van build? What are some of those first steps you'd recommend someone take once they've decided they want to get into van life?
Some of the first steps you should take is figuring out what chassis you want to build on. And first and foremost, don't think about building a van company right now. If you're just building a van, do that. But don't try to build a company off your first van, which I have seen a lot. But find the platform you want. If you're a DIYer, I always recommend, I started with an ambulance. And that was because I am very confident when I don't know what I'm doing. So I was like, ambulances have cabinets, which I never built cabinets before. Like 8 years ago when I got that ambulance. So I was like, I don't really know how to build cabinets, but this comes with cabinets and I know how to do electrical systems and plumbing systems. So I built this ambulance and it was a really smooth transition into me becoming a van builder. And school buses, similar thing. You got a big open area, a lot of square surface. But both of those come with the caveat, if you build that, do not expect to make any money off of those builds. Because if you build an ambulance for a school bus, you probably will not profit from that venture.
A very common thing I hear people talk about is how it's a depreciating asset when you live in a van. Like the more you live in it, the mileage takes it down. Should people go into a van build thinking about the selling point as well? Like, for example, I'm building a van right now. Is it smart to go into this van build thinking about the resale value and thinking about when I would want to sell it, those kind of things?
Not if it's your first one, because 9 times out of 10, your first van, you're going to want to get rid of it at some point, because there's always stuff that you thought you could have done better, or you wish you changed this and that. Every first van, I've never heard anybody say anything different than this. It's your stepping stone into this stuff. You know, I haven't met anybody that's like, I've built one van, I lived in that one van, that's it. It's always like, yeah, I'm on my like 3rd van right now, and this one's better because of this. So go into it with the expectation that you're probably not going to profit from it. Don't do it for profit is actually the lesson that I'm trying to give. Don't do it for profit. Do it because you actually want to like travel in a van and see the world, but don't do it for money-driven purposes in the beginning. If you're good at it the first time, then you can think about making money from it.
Going back to how you were talking about how when people build their first van, they always in their second and third build have all these different things they've learned they would rather do differently. What are some of those common mistakes or things you think people go back and be like, I wish I hadn't done this, or mistakes people are making that they're trying not to remake in some of those later builds?
A lot of electrical systems. Typically the first go, the YouTube all-stars make some pretty bad mistakes with electrical systems. And that's an area that you don't want to make any mistakes at all. You want that to be 100% safe. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when they start van building, they have cabinet experience and woodworking and stuff, but they don't have the fundamentals of electronics. So I do see a lot of people making big mistakes with the electrical systems. And that is something that's a foundational point. So when you have an electrical system, a lot of people, when they first build a van, they bury it and you can't access it. You can't work on it. Later, when you start building vans, you start really like, oh, if I build it like this, then I can work on it. But when it's your first van and you're first starting, you're just going to put some together that works. And that's why a lot of people want to sell their first van. They're like, I can't change fuses and stuff in this thing because I buried it behind cabinets. So those are some of the big issues that I see in typical first builds.
Thinking back kind of how you're mentioning that, there's people who DIY their entire vans, people who buy entire professional vans, and people who do like a DIY assist kind of thing, where my electrical system was installed by you in my new van, and I feel very confident about that. And that's what kind of the road I chose, is I was like, if I make a cabinet and it's a little wonky looking, that's fine, it's just a little ugly. But the electrical, as you were saying, can very easily go wrong and be a safety issue or something like that. And so DIY is just something. Where would you recommend people knowing where they fall and which one they should choose?
It's tough. It's tough to know somebody's skill set and say, like, I'm confident in you building a 12-volt system, because a electrician, like a commercial or residential electrician, is probably going to think that they know all there is to know about electricity. But low voltage systems are very different. And there's a lot of like different size wire, different types of terminals. Like it's not the same thing. So it's always best to find somebody that you know knows their stuff. Actually, somebody you're familiar with, a lot of the 12-volt knowledge I gained was from Will Prowse. I did a lot of research on his YouTube channel because I had a big electrical background in the advanced electronic computer field in the Navy. And like I said earlier, I'm really good at knowing when I don't know things. And I'm like, I don't really fully understand this solar and 12-volt stuff. Let me go learn from somebody that knows their stuff and then go attack it. And that's how I got my skills honed into more of a van space versus a military missile system space.
How, when someone is starting out in the van life space, when they don't really know what's right and wrong, and they're kind of taking in all this different information from YouTube videos and blogs, etc., how do you know that what the information you're getting is from a good reputable source compared to, I mean, we were talking as well about how I thought I was in one area, I thought I was finding a website or a van building course that I thought was reputable, ends up it, wasn't. What would be your advice for them to be able to say when they're looking on the internet, trying to get DIY, trying to find affordable help, how do they know where they're going is a good, reputable place?
It's another tricky one. There's a lot of stuff out there that looks like it comes from a reputable source, and then it's not from somebody that has the experience and the background to give that information out. So, I mean, one, if you ever contact Sandy Vans, we definitely got you covered with professionals here. But of course, look at the builders that do volume. Look at the builders that build more than 6 to 10 vans a year. Look at the guys that, like, we're building probably like 3 vans this year. So that's not bragging. That's not anything other than I deal with so many vans all the time, and I've made more mistakes than most people out there, and that means I've corrected more mistakes than most people out there. And that's what you need to look for your source. You need to make sure that there's somebody that hasn't just built one van, that there's somebody that's built a lot of systems, they've done a lot of things, they have a lot of content to prove that they're out there doing it and not just a hobbyist, which there's nothing wrong with you hobby guys out there. It's just, I can't say that you're like an expert level and giving advice and knowledge because you haven't built the amount of systems and stuff that a lot of us have.
Yeah. To be selling and then giving more information out to be able to keep building. Yeah. Just letting the years build up. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of going back again to how we were talking about, your syllabus and that we were teaching at your class that you're going to have at Sandy Vans. What would you say after you've picked the chassis? How we talked about, the first choice you're going to do is pick your chassis. What else are some of those first steps you're going to take when you're deciding to get into van life and do a van build?
So chassis is good. Having a good space to work on a van is important. I built a lot of vans in my driveway in the front street of my house before. I actually got kicked out of that house, which made me live in another van from that. But having a good space and good tools, you definitely don't want to cheap out on tools and blades and bits and stuff like that, because you're only as good as the tools you use. So I think a very good platform is tools, and then having a source that you can consult with that can guide you when you hit those trouble points. Because when you don't know what you're doing and you're just figuring it out, there's going to be a lot of questions that you have, and rather than just keep going and just kick that problem down the road, it's good to have somebody that you can reach out to and ask those questions, which is why I'm doing my best with community outreach and having a course so people could come by and get those questions answered by, somebody that they'll come to the shop and see, 15 vans around them. They know that I have the right answer for them. So yeah, tools and a good consultant, I think, are 2 very important ones.
Yeah. Kind of going off those smooth beginning steps, I know a big thing that I really like with Sandy Vans, which is why when I get my work done, you guys did my AC install, you guys did my electrical install, why I really liked you guys. I went to Adventure Van Expo where you guys were at as well. I walked around, and what really stood out about your guys' vans is that when you do your custom professional builds, you really get to know the person you're building the van for, and you kind of put creative aspects in that. And the one that really stood out to me recently was the bass guitar van and the creativity. And I would love if you could talk a little bit about that and about your creative process when you're going into building vans.
Yeah. So the reason that we started this podcast when we did is because I was handing off the bass guitar van to the new customer. So he's actually here right now getting his van, and we actually do a full red carpet ceremony and everything, like the whole team like claps for them and stuff, but that's a different conversation. The creative process, we have 4 different layouts. So you're going to choose a layout, and then there's 25 different options that you could choose. So you get like a very customizable feel. You get to pick your upholstery color, your cabinet color, lighting designs, all that stuff. And then you get to talk to me after, all that, your build sheet is made. And then that's when we really get into some stuff like the bass guitarist was a guitarist. That's why we built a bass guitar on his ceiling. And I feel like he was kind of joking in our initial consultation about having a guitar on his ceiling. And we made it out of backlit with fiber optics and stuff. And he was absolutely blown away. But it starts with having a foundation that is similar to all of our builds. So cabinetry, systems, all of that is relatively identical. But then I could focus on making really cool countertops, table, ceilings specifically. That's what we've been doing a lot of crazy stuff with. And that gives an opportunity to have a van that is sound structurally, but also creative at the same time. Because the reason bigger companies build these like modular builds where you just see the cabinets and not everything's all like molded together is because we know we have to work on it. So I'm going to make sure that I have some creative stuff going on with our modular cabinetry. So I hope that answers. I know I go on a bit of a tangent sometimes. So.
No, it's good. When you I know you also do some of your own work. You have your own van that you're building, which you're doing the purple theme, which I think is super cool. Do you use like SketchUp? Do you draw it out? Like, how do you visualize what you want that to look like, either aesthetically or even just layout wise?
Yeah, so my process is different than my company's process. So Sandy Vans, we have an engineer and he does like a lot of CAD work and there's a lot of designs with that. There's basically I would make things out of wood earlier in Sandy Vans, and then Evan, our engineer, would like measure everything and then just print off a ton of them off the CNC. And then I was like, this is great. But my process is a little different because I'm a little more peculiar than a business. I like to hang pieces of like inspiration in my van while I work on it. So I have a golden tiger striped blazer. I have purple pit viper goggles with like leopard straps on them. And I'm going for a very like 80s like boogie van kind of style and a Sprinter. It's all like purple velvet on the inside. So I like to hang things that I think look cool in my van while I'm working on it. And it's funny because I don't intend to put the things in that I do. And then later I'm like, that looks exactly like the goggles that have been sitting in my van. And, I don't know. It's kind of like one of the funky things I do. And it's more of a private thing. I haven't really told many people about that. But now whoever's listening to this knows that I hang clothing and goggles and stuff in my van to get inspired.
That's great. So you kind of immerse yourself in what you think you want the aesthetics to be, and then it kind of just creatively helps you along the way.
Yeah, I avoid trying to get inspiration from other people. I try to like find that in myself because I know I'm a very like creative guy. Not saying that there aren't people out there that inspire me. That's absolutely not the case. I just want me to be with what I do personally with my van. I want it to be a unique piece that doesn't look like anyone else's. But as a company, I do look at other builders and see what they're doing just to stay current with the times. Yeah.
Is there anything that you think is like innovative, like that you've seen in vans that's kind of been innovative or new, or you think is coming into the van life space that intrigues you? I know we were just at the Adventure Van Expo and I was walking around and they had some just lots of cool gadgets and things that were coming to be able to upgrade van builds. Anything that you've seen that you've liked that would be good in a new van build?
More of like a blanket term. I really like the shower alternatives that are coming out, that you don't require a giant water closet in your van, because I've always been against anything that keeps moisture inside your van. For my own personal stuff, like if somebody wants a shower in their van, I'll put it in, but if I could avoid it, I will. One of the products I saw was Tetra Van's folding shower. I think that thing's absolutely cool. It looks like a dishwasher and it folds out of the wall. And then you have this magnetized curtain that comes up and you just hook it up to your ceiling, and it really keeps the shower out of the way. And I don't know, just stuff like that I think is really cool, because that's stuff that I'm comfortable using, because you could still use that in a different way. Like I'm having mine fold out diagonally across my van versus like everybody doing perpendicular or parallel. So I don't know. I really like products that have multi-purposes, or they can be completely stowed away. So I've been seeing more and more of that lately, and I'm really stoked on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for a final question here, I'd love to know, what would be your piece of advice for someone who is just now getting into van life, starting a van build, besides, just do it, just get into it? What would be your piece of advice for someone who wants to get into van life?
So it starts with just do it.
It always does.
But part of the way through, while you're building, make sure to not build on top of your mistakes. If you made a mistake and you know you made a mistake, I know I'm looking at you, audience. I know it's a pain to tear apart your hard work and redo it, but I promise you, you will be less likely to hate your van in the end if you start off at a right place. Like if you have something crooked in the beginning, you best believe it's going to be crooked in the end. So you want to keep your subfloors tight, your walls nice, your cabinetry solid. And if it's not right, tear it out, do it again, and try to have fun doing it. I hate doing rework personally, so it's astonishing I'm giving this advice, but that is what sets a professional builder apart from a DIYer, is the amount of times that a task has been completed. So if you're a DIYer and you redo your cabinet 30 times, you are going to have an experience of a pro level, because you will know exactly how to do it next time, and you'll know what's wrong and what's right. So tear yourself apart. Don't be afraid. That is my biggest piece of advice.
Awesome. And where can people find you? Where can they find a link to your course you're going to have in Sandy Vans? Where can people kind of connect with you?
You guys can find me at Stolp Solutions on Instagram, or if you want to check out our company, sandyvans.com. But my van DIY course, the link is in my bio on Stolp Solutions. You can buy tickets. I believe it's only $20 to attend this event, and I'll have some snacks there, like hang out. It's on a weekend. It's on a Saturday, so should be a good time. But yeah, I'm always here at the shop. So we're over here in Miramar, 9393 Trade Place, Sandy Vans. We're open 5. So if you want to come by and check us out, feel free. Open doors.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for answering all the questions and helping people out.
You're welcome, Tori. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for watching as well, and we'll see you in the next VanLife Unfiltered episode.